early on, as many of you know, we've had other disasters in the community, and we have learned from the past with the fires in Paradise or the fires in Napa and Sonoma, how important it is that we get out right in front of the situation and let the world know that we're here for them if they need help. We find that even if people don't respond immediately, they're more apt to remember a week or two or a month or two later when they realize that funds are running out. They remember that they had seen a post by Hebrew Free Loan and they know to turn to us for help. So that is exactly what we did, not knowing what we were getting ourselves into. On March 8th, we actually pretty early on in the saga, we sent out an email to about 10,000 people on our email list and let them know that we were here for people who were challenged financially by COVID. After that, we started realizing that we may not have the kind of funding in place to provide enough support, given a lot of factors that were happening. We had, first of all, we recognized that our investments were starting to go down, as most people have realized, but we depend on those investments to kick money over to us for loan capital as well as operating support. So at least on paper, we saw we were losing a fair amount of money, and it was one of the first warning signs for us. The next step was, of course, we had already canceled our business circle luncheon, which was slated for March 23rd. So we realized that we were not going to be receiving the kind of fundraising support that we were counting on. The third issue was that we started to hear from our existing loan recipients that they may not be in a position to make their regular monthly payments. Now, keep in mind, many of you know, we pride ourselves on this. We have a repayment rate historically and in modern times of 99.9%. We always hear from our loan recipients if they have issues and we work with them. But lo and behold, when we started getting the kind of numbers of requests, it was a little frightening. In fact, many people wrote to say, could you just pause my payments for 6 months? Which of course we couldn't do. We wouldn't be in business 6 months from now if we did that for everyone. So, so that was another warning sign. We'll mention that a little bit later. I'll tell you what happened and how that got ameliorated. But the fourth issue was that we started to see the applications rolling in. Lots and lots of people needing help and really in a panic mode. They were applying fast and furiously. So we turned, I called many people. I did a lot of fundraising with some of our long-standing supporters, but we also reached out to the Jewish Community Federation, and I spoke with my wonderful colleague and friend, Tanya Shadone of the Endowment Committee, Endowment Department at the Federation, and we had done some other projects together, and we started talking about the kind of help we needed, and we agreed. Tanya said, maybe it's time for us to dust off that idea we've been kicking around for a long time of turning to people who have donor-advised funds at the Federation, where they have parked some charitable dollars there to be doled out over time, and it's all invested in the meantime. And the idea was that they could potentially loan us money so that we could use it as loan capital to help people in need. So I really want to acknowledge Tanya for being very forward-thinking and to act so quickly. Together, we moved quickly. She asked me for a proposal. Within a few days, the proposal was submitted, and the next step was that Laura Lauder, the chair of the Endowment Committee, read the proposal and got excited about it. You're going to hear from her in a second. I just really want to thank Laura for jumping on board because she didn't hesitate. She worked really quickly. You'll hear from her how, but she solicited a lot of people who hold those donor-advised funds. And really, within 2 weeks from the time I had that conversation with Tanya, we received our first funding. I believe the first tranche was about $1.2 million. But as of today, they've raised $5.8 million from 92 donor-advised funds and 2 supporting foundations, as well as another $1 million from the Federation's endowment fund. It's been remarkable support. It gave us the peace of mind that we could continue to market and ask people to turn to us for help because we knew we'd have the funds available. So that money started rolling in. We, of course, need more operating support, so we did a lot more fundraising. We can still use that support, but today is not about asking you for funds. We want to just share with you the exciting rollout of this plan that's enabled us to help so many people. So with that, I want to ask Laura Lauder to speak now and just share a few words. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Well, this has been one of the most meaningful operations of philanthropy I've ever been involved in. You all have made this an opportunity to do tikkun olam, to make a huge difference for so many donor advice fund holders at the Federation, to take their resources where they were sitting in their accounts and put them to work in the most meaningful way, providing a lifeline to so many. So how did it happen? The wonderful Tanya and you, Cindy, got together and created this opportunity between two institutions that have been partners in so many ways for so many years. For over 100 years, Hebrew Free Loan and the Federation have been connected to each other, have worked together, and it's that tremendous partnership and built on trust that was executed on in 2 weeks. That's what built the foundation of this relationship. And for that, we're so very grateful. So my personal role was simply that I've been on the endowment committee for almost 20 years. I'm a protege of Phyllis Cook. She is my mentor, my rabbi, my role model. And I knew that in order for us to create opportunities to add value for our donor advised fund holders, we had to create new ways for them to invest the corpus of their philanthropic dollars. So social impact investing became a calling card, a very important element of our approach to build the Jewish Community Endowment Fund's services to donor advised fund holders and supporting foundations. And so what happened with over 1,000 donor advised fund holders and hundreds of millions of dollars in DAF assets at the Jewish Community Federation and Endowment Fund? Tanya said, these are our folks who we can go to. We can seed fund this from a grant from the Endowment Fund, a recoverable grant from the Endowment Fund. So with $1 million, and then my husband, Gary, my sweet, wonderful husband, and I agreed to put up the first 500,000. So we had $1.5 million that we then said, challenge. Let's see if we can get to $3 million by Pesach. And we got to $3 million literally within a few days. The response was overwhelming. The executive committee of the endowment stepped up immediately. Jamie Weinstein, the next chair of the Federation Endowment Fund, stepped up. David Agger, Matt Berler, Jimmy Koshland, Jim Heeger, Arthur Slepian, the entire executive committee said, we're in. The board of the Federation stepped up. We made a presentation. So many board members stepped up. And then it was just a few phone calls. My gosh, it was unbelievable. There were even a few folks, and I'm going to say one name in particular, who stepped up so quickly and so passionately. And that's John Pritzker, who matched my 500,000. And then many others came forward as well. Moses Levitsky also matched it. And then we got one person who gave us $800,000 from his donor advised fund as, again, a recoverable grant. It was overwhelming, the extraordinary outpouring of support. We are so grateful to everyone who did this. And now with 92 donor advised fund holders and 2 supporting foundations, the Federation has really felt like it has been responsive to those who are most in need, providing that lifeline. So I encourage all Hebrew Free Loans across the country to look at this model as a way to provide services both to donor advised fund holders in the federations as well as to the greater community. It's a marriage made in heaven. Essentially, it's your approach, Cindy, of providing no interest loans to those who need it. And we're just a source of that same donor capital. I want to say a big thank you to Mark Abelson for being a great board chair of the Hebrew Free Loan, to you, Cindy, to Jamie, to all of the folks at Hebrew Free Loan who've just done a great job in doing this. We're so appreciative for your allowing us to do this mitzvah. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Laura. I really appreciate it. You've been a fantastic partner, and it's been really a lot of fun working together on this. I'd like to call on Mark Abelson to say a few words.
Well, I also want to thank Laura and all of the people at the Endowment Fund. This has been just an incredible community effort. Listening to both Cindy and Laura talk, you understand the journey that we took from the basement to the penthouse, so to speak, because initially we were quite concerned about what we were facing. And as soon as we contacted the Endowment Fund, the Federation's Endowment Fund, and the generosity and the response and the quickness, the alacrity of the response made our efforts of what we're doing today very possible. And as I've said to a number of people who have contacted me about making donations, I want to be able to say, and I think other people want to be able to say 5 or 10 years down the road from now, that when we were called upon to respond to this emergency caused by a pandemic, that we stood up to be counted. And that is what the Endowment Fund and our community has done. We have stood up to be counted. We have allowed Hebrew Free Loan to accomplish its mission. Every Wednesday in the last month, we have had meetings to approve loan applications. And yesterday, we approved about 40 loan applications. And that evening, I signed over $500,000 of checks for those 40 loan applicants. And that has been happening on a regular basis, which you'll hear more about when Cindy speaks right after me. So the community has not only responded with great generosity, but they have placed a tremendous amount of trust in Hebrew Free Loan to provide this community assistance. And for Hebrew Free Loan, this responsibility of assisting people and getting the job done fairly and quickly has been a responsibility that our organization has been made for. We've been in existence for over 100 years, and we now are really the address for our community to provide financial assistance and to do it correctly and fairly and well. And I can't tell you how proud I am of the staff of Hebrew Free Loan. The people have been working tirelessly. We are all led by Cindy Rogaway, who does not understand the word fatigue. It is not in her lexicon. And everyone has worked to make the loan application process simpler so it will go quicker, and we are able to disperse these monies to people who are really in need very quickly. And I couldn't be prouder of how our organization has responded. And for those of you on this call who have provided funds for us, I want you to know that Hebrew Free Loan will not let you down. We are not going to let the community down, and we are going to get our job done. And I think we have done that, and I couldn't be more proud as to the role that we've played and the generosity that people in our community have shown for others in financial need. So I'm going to, that's what I have to say, other than a big thank you to everyone on the staff at Hebrew Free Loan, a big thank you to the people, the DAF holders who have provided the funds, the leadership of Laura Lauder, Tanya's efforts, and the efforts of all the staff members at Hebrew Free Loan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Talk about an excellent partner. It's been, Mark is very humble, but he has played a key role and has stepped up in every way that one would hope for a board president, and has led the board and their response as well. I am very blessed to have the most amazing board to work with, and everybody is extremely supportive. I want to take us now.
Hold on, can I add one thing? Thank you,
Sure.
Cindy. I forgot. I want to thank not only the staff at Hebrew Free Loan, but the executive committee has worked tirelessly. And as I said, each Wednesday we're having these loan meetings. So a number of volunteers, board members and committee members have also given of their time and their dollars. And we appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now I want to take us to some slides and share with you a little bit about our actual response, now that you know how we had the confidence to move forward to provide this support. Thank you, Jamie. So let's go to the first slide. Or the next slide. Okay, so first of all, as I mentioned, we had a lot of loan applications, and I just wanted to give you a visual of that understanding. Our fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th. So looking at the number of applications we've received each month, you can see at the far left, you'll see July, August, September. When COVID began in March, you see the huge jump up, and that's all this slide is meant to share with you. These are real numbers behind this, and it just shows you the overwhelming response to our call for people to submit applications if they're in need. Let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, I guess we're having a glitch. Okay, number of approved loans. You can see here, the orange line is this current year, and the blue line is last year. So if you just look at last year, the number of approved loans, we do have a busy July, August, September usually because of student loans, which is such a big part of our program. But if you see that, follow that blue line, you see that around March, April, May, things are usually very quiet. And this year, that was not the case. And this shows you the uptick in the number of approved loans towards the end here, March, April, May. You'll see some real numbers in a few minutes. Can we go to the next slide, Jamie? This shows the actual dollar amount of loans, which shows a very similar picture. And again, the orange line is this year. So again, we've given out a whole lot more than we usually do. And you'll see in another two slides, you'll see some of those numbers exactly. But here it gives you the sense that this was not your average month. Okay, I'm ready for the next slide. This shows a timeline of our response, and some of this I've already spoken about, but it shows you that early on March 8th, we sent out the email telling people we were here for them. The next day, we canceled our business circle luncheon. We postponed it. We'll have to see if we're comfortable bringing hundreds of people together. We were slated to have 300 people at that luncheon. So if possible, we would do it in the fall, but we're not sure that's going to be possible. March 16th, the staff went remote. We made the decision along with London Breed's request, the mayor of San Francisco, when she asked people to shelter in place, we decided that was the right time for it. Luckily, we were all set up well in our homes to carry on the work we needed to and work remotely, so we didn't really miss a beat there. We also sent out an email. I mentioned earlier all these requests from loan recipients that they were suddenly not in a position to make their regular monthly payments. We sent out what I think is a pivotal bit of communication to all of our 1,100 existing borrowers. We had 1,100 loan recipients with about $12 million out in loans. We normally receive about $360,000 a month in loan payments. And we sent out a very personal email letting that whole community know that they are part of a very carefully constructed ecosystem that allows us to take money in from them on a monthly basis and move it forward to other people who come through our virtual door asking for support. And that if they were not in a position to give, to make their payments, we might not be in a position to help others walking in the door. At the same time we gave that message, we also made it clear that they're our first priority. They're people that are part of our community already. They have been vetted, they've taken on the responsibility, and 99.9% of them had been paying regularly and on time. And so we felt that if they needed help, we wanted to go ahead and honor their requests. So we asked them to respond to us, let us know their situation. If they needed us to pause, we would do so for a month or two, and then see where they're at, since so much was unknown by all of us. They were amazing. The response was lovely. A lot of people did ask for pauses, and other people offered to repay their loan balances in full because they were in a better situation now than they had been when they requested the funds. People increased their monthly payments. It was just a beautiful community coming together. So I really appreciate the support from the existing loan recipients. We also started making our first COVID loans just as of March 24th. And then we had volunteer loan officers begin. And one second, I'm just getting a notice I can't text and talk at the same time. So I want to let Jamie and Marina and Terry know that Roman Kagan, who's set to speak next, is not able to get in. So can somebody please work on that? Thank you.
And also that there's also a glitch with the accepting new people into the room.
Yes.
So we're maxed at 100. So hopefully we can allow more.
Exactly. I do see now we're at 98 participants, so hopefully our speakers can at least get in. So everybody else stay on. This is not a request to jump off. Okay, so we'll just finish up this slide. We got our first round of funding in early April. It was right before Passover began. We also decided that because we needed to ramp up capacity, we don't have enough people on our team trained to do loan interviews for the massive numbers of applications coming in. And so it was about flattening the curve with loan applications, and we realized we needed to call on some extra support. So we rounded up 4 wonderful volunteers, 3 of whom were former staff people, and 1 of whom was a former board member. And the 4 of them knew a lot to begin with, so it was easy to slip right into that role. They got trained on some of the more recent developments at the agency, and they were off and running. So that has helped us tremendously with our capacity as we were ramping up. We also decided we needed to hire a new loan officer. And so we brought somebody on April 27th, which has been a big relief for all of us. And she's already set and conducting her own interviews at this point. So that's just to give you a bit of the response. I think you can stop the timeline and I'll just talk. But oh no, we do have one more slide. I want to show the numbers, if you could, Jamie. Okay, the slide that shows the numbers. Okay, so this shows you the actual activity that from when the COVID loans began. We have approved 173 loans for just about $2.5 million. If you compare that, that's just taken place in less than 2 months. And if you look at what we did last year, which was a record year for us, I want to say, last year we gave out 440 loans for $4.7 million. And that was something we were all extremely proud of and just delighted to be able to offer that much support to the community. But in the last 2 months, we've already given out over half that loan amount. It's just pretty remarkable. So you can see the numbers for yourself. And now I just want to share with you a little bit more about the loan recipients and what we're finding from people. You can leave that slide up. I don't care, Jamie, if you want to leave it up a few more minutes. what I want to share with you is that we, from the beginning, offered up to $20,000 per loan, and it's really per household, I should say. And they were for individuals, families, and small business owners who needed help with their businesses. Most of what we've received and approved so far are loans for families for what we would call general needs. Expenses, paying rent, buying food, medicine, paying other kinds of bills, car payments, whatever they needed, for things that they hadn't built up debt yet. This was just things that they were facing, major expenses. I believe it's 46% of our loans to date since March 24th have been for general needs. We've also provided 11% of our loans have gone to small businesses who are trying to make payroll, to keep people on the team, to pay for inventory for their businesses, to pay for things that they otherwise might have been able to afford, but because of the shelter in place, they suddenly needed additional support to keep on going and have a place for employees to return to. All of our money was offered really as a supplement to other kinds of governmental support that everybody is very well aware of, with SBA loans, for the PPP loans, for payroll, the economic injury kind of impact loans that were given out, other kinds of SBA loans, and of course, unemployment. Our goal was not to replace that, but to supplement it. And our loan officers worked with people to make sure they were applying for all the necessary and available funds they could. But unfortunately, a lot of that funding wasn't coming through quickly enough, and people still needed to rely on us so that they could make those bill payments right away. We also noticed that we've had a real spectrum of income levels of people who were applying. There were people who were definitely struggling. Many people were struggling in advance of COVID, and this just made it that much more acute. And they needed the help now before they would become homeless and find themselves in dire straits that would be much more difficult to climb out of. So we've definitely dealt with about 11% of the people that we have approved loans for make less than $20,000 a year. I would say on the flip side of it, there were many people who've turned to us who would describe themselves as being comfortable before COVID began, comfortable financially, and making ends meet. Some of them had more debt than they would like to admit or wanted to deal with, but they were managing that debt and managing to live their lives with dignity and fully. But because of COVID, they suddenly found themselves not bringing in any money. So when you have a family and you have bills to pay, and you can't buy groceries because very few of these people, as you know, this is a national thing. This isn't just within the Jewish community, and it's not just Bay Area, but really people rarely have more than what they say is $400 of extra savings to throw at a problem that occurs unexpectedly. So you can imagine, with the kinds of rents and mortgages that exist here in the Bay Area, this has been a big issue for people who thought they were making it and suddenly had no income. So about 20% of the people that we have offered loans to in the last 2 months actually make in the neighborhood of $100,000. But they're in the Bay Area. That isn't always that's not always enough, as I think people are aware. So we've been helping people with a lot of debt consolidation loans. 12% of our loans over the last few months have been debt consolidation, and we've seen an uptick in that. Again, this is people who've had debt before or people who've accumulated debt during the COVID crisis. We've also seen particular professions really struggle a lot. We've had chiropractors and acupuncturists and massage therapists who deal with their jobs, bring them in close contact with people who physically, which obviously means they couldn't perform their services during the last few months, and that's been very difficult for them. So we've seen a lot of applications from people in those fields. We've also seen and maybe this is because Jews love to eat, I don't know, but also I think we've given out so many loans, business loans, to support people in the community who are in the food industry. And word got out as well that now, whether they'd received help from us in the past or not, that we were here for them. We have helped a ton of caterers and restaurant owners who were really struggling all of a sudden. And many were able to pivot successfully and manage to provide takeout food or delivery. So we've been very impressed to watch how all of these business owners have pivoted. When I say 11% have been business loans, that means specifically helping businesses survive. But we've also been providing help to countless number of people who were in business for themselves, coaches and artists and musicians and consultants and people in tech who needed help just to pay their own bills because they weren't being paid by whatever job they were doing. So it's been difficult. Reading these applications is very difficult. It's draining for all of us, but we're not here to complain. We're just grateful that we're in a position to offer support and offer this lifeline for people right now. We are offering, one of the things that we did to be very flexible, the name of the game, our mantra has been be as flexible as we need to be in order to get funds into the hands of people in need. We couldn't afford to wait and offer this over time. We needed to help them now. So we adjusted a lot of our policies. I won't go into a lot of depth on that right now because of the time, but just know that we loosened up our guarantor policies. We loosened up what our requirements are for documentation from people. We know that people are committed to repaying us, and if they are in a position to do so, we expect to see those repayments. And so we are just trying to be as flexible as we can and recognize that people mean well and they will do right by us, and we have to trust them, as we always have, and treat them with dignity, as we always do. So that is much of what I want to say. I wanted to add one thing, that there are a lot of people, to me, many of the people that we help have been, about over 50% of them have been over 50 years old. It's been very striking to see people in their late 60s and 70s who are still working, receiving some Social Security, but it isn't enough to handle their expenses. So they have been supplementing their income by taking on small jobs here and there and doing things like driving for the rideshare companies and opening up a room in their house to Airbnb. That's how they've been surviving. And right now, in the era of COVID, that just isn't possible. So it's been very moving to see, very troubling to see that people, our seniors are really struggling, and we've been trying very hard to be responsive to them. So I want to, in light of the time, I want to make sure we have a chance to hear from two recent loan recipients who everyone on the team has grown to love. I'm hoping that they're both on the call. The first is Roman Kagan. Is he on the call?
Yes,
Roman?
I am.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Don't want to steal your thunder, so go ahead and share your story with us. Thank you for joining
All right.
us.
Absolutely. So let me start from the beginning, like we say. I'm originally from Russia. I came from Russia 25 years ago, and I've been doing the programming for the last 30 years. So I would consider myself pretty stable. Unfortunately, I had to divorce, and I was very fortunate and was very blessed to find my wife. She has 6 children with her. And I was able to get a baby in this world, and we wanted very, 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 very much. And unfortunately, we also were pressed with a lot of needs for medicine, for the IVF, for the testing, for a lot of different research, a lot of different operations, and so on and so forth. So I found out that there is such an organization as a Hebrew Free Loan, and I've asked first time to get some loan. And because of that, we were able to financially sustain the IVF, and we were able to get the baby. We have a beautiful daughter who is 2.5 years old, and we were able to repay the loan. However, when we repaid the loan just a few months ago or so, we hit with coronavirus. And I'm observant Jew, so I went to the synagogue on every day. And one day I socialized with a few folks who came from New York. And as you know, New York is a disaster. Unfortunately, I didn't know those kids were looking totally fine. They were totally fine. They had no fever. They had no signs of anything. However, I contracted the coronavirus, and after few days, I woke up at nighttime with a high fever. I checked my fever, my temperature, and I had 102 or so. And that continued over 2 weeks. So 2 weeks of disaster where I didn't know whether I will survive or not. Practically, I was sleeping all the time. I'm a programmer, as I mentioned before. So when I was doing the programming, I've done a lot of consulting work for various companies. Well, if you're doing the consulting work, you are not a full-timer where you have the vacation time, you have sick time. You only sustain yourself when you're working. And during those few weeks, I wasn't able to work. Not only during those few weeks, but after that, when I finally was able to get over the coronavirus, I tested positive with coronavirus. We had to go to Hayward and to the fire department, and fire department was testing us. And then a week later, they told us that for sure we had coronavirus. For a few more weeks, I wasn't able to even think straight. I wasn't able to lift my arms. I wasn't able to type on the keyboard. And I'm very fortunate that I have a customer who was okay for me to take a long break because of the coronavirus. However, because I'm a consultant, I wasn't able to provide for my family. And we have 6 kids living with us and 2 kids that are not living with us, who are living in different cities. So because of that, we got better physically, but financially, unfortunately, it was a drop for us. We had to pay rent, we had to pay for our landlord, and we had to pay some other bills. And during that time, I've seen an email from Hebrew Free Loan, please, if you're affected by COVID-19, connect to us. And I connected to Hebrew Free Loan, and in very, very speedily manner, I was able to recover even from the financial loss. So I'm grateful few times for Hebrew Free Loan to, first of all, to give us the opportunity to get a very beautiful baby girl. And second time to once again be on a financially on the ground level, on a very good level, to sustain ourselves and not to be worried about the financial needs for this time being. So thank you guys from Hebrew Free Loan. It's my soul and my everything is for you. Whatever I can do, I'd love to do. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you so much, Roman. Thanks for sharing your story, and thanks for being such a mensch. We wish you all the best, you and your whole family. Continue to recover, and may you have a full recovery and good health from here on out. Refuah shlema. I would like to see if Ria Satel is also on the phone. There you are, yay. I'm glad you could make it on. Thank you, Ria. I really appreciate your sharing your story with us. I think you might still be muted. Still can't hear you. It should be in the lower left. Okay, there you go. Okay, say something.
I think the issue is on her end.
Okay. Oh no. We can't hear you, but I see that it isn't muted. Do you have a microphone in your computer? It should be fine. Hey, maybe Ria, maybe you should get off the call and come right back on, and we'll try to get right back to that.
Alex is suggesting she raise her volume.
Okay. Ria, she might have gone off and come on. I do apologize, of course, for the technical difficulties. Her story is really worth it, so please stay on for another minute, and maybe while we get her back on, I'll go ahead and tell you about the networking that we'll do after her story. We're going to do questions and answers, and then we're going to do some networking where those of you who can stay on, we hope most of you will, we'll hit a button at the right moment, and everybody will just be in a smaller group of people to be able to do some networking and meet other people who are supporters of Hebrew Free Loan in one way or another. So we hope you'll stay on.
Who joined us.
She's back. Okay.
Maria's back. Can we hear her though?
Okay. If we can't hear her, maybe we should go to questions and answers, and then if we can work out that glitch, maybe she could use a different computer or something, and then we could still have her share her story. Terry, do you have any questions from anybody?
Rhea may be able to call in.
That's a great idea.
Give her
Yeah,
the.
she uses her phone, her cell phone.
Yeah.
Yes. Can Marina, can you reach out to her, or Terry?
I'm texting her right now. I'm also suggesting she try restarting her computer.
Okay, but maybe she could just call in, and
Yeah,
we'll.
Maybe
We've all
so.
seen how lovely she is, and she can just chat with us. Thank you, everybody, for all your patience. So as soon as, Terry, as soon as you finish texting her, maybe you can share with me any questions that have been asked.
Yes, there are no questions yet, but I'm sure there are people who are waiting for the invitation to ask some.
I have a question from someone who has texted to me.
Okay.
What fraction of applications are accepted, and are you happy with the ratio of yes, no?
I am very happy with the ratio, because I would say that by the time a request gets to the committee for approval, and I have a few board members I'm seeing right now, so I think you can all back me up on this. I would say by the time it gets to the committee, over 95% of them are approved. And sometimes it even happens that the committee of the board will decide that we should offer even additional funds than the person was requesting to take care of some other specific need. So people have to be Jewish unless they are an employee of a synagogue or other Jewish organization, in which case they're welcome to apply as well, regardless of their religion. But so that's a reason that we sometimes have to, at the early screening point, decide not to offer, not to pursue the loan process with them. There are also people who will apply. Today I heard from somebody who lives in Southern California, and that is another reason we only serve Northern California. So there are reasons like that. But by and large, by the time the loan request comes to the committee, as long as they meet some of the basic guidelines, they're usually approved. I see that somebody is raising their hand. Shelley Hebert, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I was wondering what you've done about repayment schedules in terms of, have you made changes, or what are you expecting under these circumstances?
Thank you. That's a great question. Some of our sister agencies and other communities, and I see even a few representatives. It's nice to have you join us today from other free loan agencies. Some of them have been in a position where they could completely pause payments for 3 months or 2 months. We haven't wanted to do anything like that in a blanket way. Based largely on what took place when we sent out that email to our existing loan recipients and got such a lovely response, but such a varied response. Some people are in a position to make the payments. They use a little bit of the money we've given them to make their initial payments. Other people have some source of income, just not enough to take care of some big capital need of theirs. So we are trying to take the approach of a case-by-case decision, and we work with them. The loan officer works with them on their budgets. That's part of the process, to look at their monthly household budget and to determine if they're in a position to afford our payments. Sometimes we have to lower the recommended monthly payment amount from the get-go. Sometimes we say we'll keep that low for a few months and then pick it up. We also, in general, pre-COVID, offer to people the first month, they play with our money for free, and then they can start making payments about a month to a month and a half after they receive the loan. So we haven't changed that, except that in most cases, we're starting 2 months in. Unless they tell us they can manage it and can pay it beginning 1 month in. So hopefully that answers your question.
Chantel is back in.
Okay, great. Let's just, while we're doing this, why don't we take a few more questions and then we'll have Rhea tell her story so that we don't get too choppy. Jerry Miller, I see that you're wanting to ask a question. Jerry, there you go.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
so you said that 95% of the funds are approved by the time they get to the committee, but I was curious what that meant. It's like, how involved is the process for the application before it actually gets to the committee? Do you lose, a fair amount before that time, or are most
Right, I understand. I wouldn't say a fair amount. I mentioned some of the issues. If somebody isn't Jewish and doesn't work for a Jewish organization, somebody lives in another community, we refer them to other free loan agencies. There are times, even now, it used to be, even though we had already loosened a lot of our guarantor requirements, we are now offering that if somebody has one guarantor, we'll offer them up to $10,000. And if they have 2 guarantors, we'll offer them up to 20. We make exceptions. We look at their situation. We hear them out. So that wouldn't deter somebody at the early stage. They're still on board. We have been moving very fast. We have had situations where somebody's turned to us on a Tuesday and received their loan on a Wednesday. That isn't every day and every applicant, but I would say we've ramped up in order to meet the needs and move people through more quickly. So at this point, I would say people are getting their loans within a week and a half. So there isn't a lengthy process. Literally, we ask them for their driver's license. We ask them for a monthly budget of their household income and expenses and a privacy release. If in meeting with them, we feel the need to look at a little more, we'll check their credit report. We'll let them submit it to us so it doesn't ding their own credit. We also will take a look at tax returns or bank statements or credit card statements if it's applicable for the loan they're requesting. But that's really it. And if they turn that around to us quickly, we are, as Mark Abelson mentioned, we're having Wednesday meetings with our committees and board to review these loans and moving them through as quickly as we can. So the last 3 weeks, we've had over 30 loans to present each Wednesday, just to give you an idea. I have a very hardworking team. So hopefully,
thank you for hard work. And for me, it's an honor to be able to help.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Laura, you have a question? I think we should just take that one more question from Laura, and then we should have a chance to hear from Rhea. So Laura.
Thanks, Cindy. My question is, I know that for the first time you've opened this up to non-Jewish participants in order to reach out to those who have been laid off by Jewish institutions. Have you gotten any applicants from non-Jewish folks?
Yes, we have. And just to be clear, we have in the past provided loans to non-Jewish employees of synagogues, but usually we would wait until they had been in an organization for at least 5 years. So we suspended that to make it really clear that anybody who is working for the Jewish community is part of the community. And we have received, I don't have concrete percentages or numbers, but I would tell you in the last few weeks, those have picked up. And I would say we've had applications from at least 5 to 8 people a week who are not Jewish but working for a Jewish organization. So we're very pleased to be able to offer that support as well.
I wanted to supplement one of the answers about the repayments. As Cindy said, they generally start the month after, but we're having people start 2 months after. And the payments are over, most of the time, 48 months. So it's a 4-year repayment process.
Thank you. And I will also add that we have always worked with our loan recipients when they get into trouble. This is not a situation where we're going to repossess a car or take their house away. When somebody gets into trouble and isn't in a position to pay, we just simply ask that they contact us before we do the automatic payment transfer from the bank, because we don't want them to incur any kind of fees on their end from the bank. We don't charge a fee if they were to miss a payment, but their own banks do. So the whole mission of Hebrew Free Loan is to help people become and remain self-sufficient. And we do that by offering interest-free loans, but we want them to be in good standing with their creditors. So we just ask that they let us know, and we'll work with them. In general, this has historically been the case. We'll let them have 2 or 3 months at a reduced payment, and then they can pick up where they left off and increase back to the normal amount. So that's just to give you some insight into the way we generally operate. So now you're welcome to contact me at any point and ask more questions that come up for you, but I want to be mindful of the time and ask Ria to share her story. Sorry for the complications, Ria.
You able to hear me now?
We are, yay.
I'm not sure what happened there. This is my 4th Zoom call in a row, so something went haywire. My name is Ria, and I am also a 2-time Hebrew Free Loan recipient. The first time we received a loan from Hebrew Free Loan was about 4 years ago, when my husband and I bought our first home. And on that occasion, obtaining the loan felt very joyous. We had done this, it was part of our life plan: buy a house, we own a few restaurants, we were investing in ourselves. And we were so proud not to just have purchased the house, but also really we were proud to have turned to Hebrew Free Loan, because it felt like, at that time, it just sort of felt like something normal to do. It felt like part of the plan. Living in the Bay Area is a real challenge, and affording a home here was a real challenge. And getting that little extra bit of help that Hebrew Free Loan provided to pay the closing costs on our house really just sort of felt like part of a step that wasn't out of the ordinary. Over the last 4 years, we have opened 2 more restaurants. We've paid off our Hebrew Free Loan. We were really investing in ourselves, and we were about to step into a place where we were going to start saving money. We had some big goals on the board for our lives, and then coronavirus hit. And as restaurant owners, things changed overnight for us. Instead of moving into a place where literally the next month in April, we were going to be saving quite a bit of money, because a number of loans, including our Hebrew Free Loan, were going to be finished. A car loan, Hebrew Free Loan. We had just finished making payments for some of our restaurant investments. Instead, all of a sudden, we didn't pay ourselves. We closed the doors to our restaurants. We had 80 employees calling us. We were very unsure of what the right thing to do was, whether or not it was to help our employees stay employed, help ourselves stay employed, or whether or not we were helping to keep them safe by making the hard decision to close. And, I've been on the giving end of Tikkun Olam my whole life. Owning a restaurant is something where you bring the community in. When one of our community members has a child that has leukemia, we hold an event, we help raise money. And all of a sudden, for the first time, I felt really worried. I was unable to focus. I was unable to make decisions for my family, because there didn't seem to be any opportunities out there for us. And so I was reviewing our finances, and all of a sudden I saw that last payment from Hebrew Free Loan was happening. And it was like my brain clicked in. And I jumped on the website and I saw this banner at the top of it that said, offering coronavirus impact loans. And all of a sudden, a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. It was like all of a sudden I knew that there was something out there for me that was applicable to me, that I could reach out to. And we reached out, and it was really interesting to reconnect with Terry, who was our loan officer on our first loan. And I went through this very humbling process over those few months of realizing that all of a sudden I was in a different position in my life that I never expected to be in. And receiving the loan changed so many things for me, because all of a sudden I wasn't desperate anymore. I was able to sit down and focus on our finances. We reopened our restaurant for curbside pickup. We were able to make smart decisions. We were able to look at things not from a desperate standpoint. A number of people in my family have also been positively impacted because I have received this loan, because they don't have to worry about me anymore. In the last few weeks, my husband and I have really sat down and put a big goal back up on the board for ourselves. And that's that we would really like to be full circle members for Hebrew Free Loan. And we're looking forward to the day where I can sit back on that side of Tikkun Olam and be part of giving it. In the meantime, we've received it, and I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. I'm feeling very emotional. Thank you so much for doing something so important for me, for helping me to help myself. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again, is I didn't need this pandemic to be easy. I just needed it to be possible. I needed a way out to reach out and help myself, and Hebrew Free Loan reached out to me and helped me and enabled me to do that. So I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart.
Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think you see people are clapping for you and giving you a lot of the love in return that you've been offering to us. Ria, you are one in a million. I really appreciate your persistence in being able to share that story with us. I know that it's meant a lot to everybody hearing it. Somebody texted me in the middle of it and wanted to know the name of your local restaurants so that they can be supportive. Can you share with us the names of your restaurants? Are you muted? Oh, there you go. Yes.
The name of our restaurants are the Parish Public Houses. We have one in Santa Cruz on the west side and one in Aptos. And then we have two other locations in Colorado, but they're both closed right now. The two that are open are in Santa Cruz and Aptos.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I ask that everybody, it's a good reminder, not only for those restaurants, but also for those of you who haven't visited our website recently, please check it out. Go to hflasf.org. If you can't remember that, just Google Hebrew Free Loan San Francisco and you will find it. And we have on our website a page dedicated to all the business loans that we've provided to various businesses. And I ask, especially now in this time of COVID, if you could go on and figure out who they are, ones that might be in your neighborhood, not just restaurants, but all kinds of businesses. If you could patronize them right now and provide them with support, that would be very meaningful to everybody concerned. I also want to ask you, before we break into our networking, I want to just give you a homework assignment, which is what I do whenever I'm speaking to a group. I ask from the bottom of my heart that you help us spread the word to people you know who might need help. It is particularly difficult, as you just heard from Ria and from Roman. These are people who were on the other side of Tikkun Olam. These are people who are charitable, who like to give. It's part of our culture to be on the giving end of things. It's very hard. I see it all the time when I'm talking with someone and they say to me, "You mean I could get a loan?" I wonder, I question you here, if you think to yourself, how many of you on this call are people who would turn to Hebrew Free Loan if you needed help financially? I just want you to know we are here for anybody who needs it, who qualifies. And as I've stated, most of you would qualify. I hope that you reach out to friends and family and spread the word. And in the next 24 hours, tell 3 people you know about Hebrew Free Loan. And we are here to help them. If you or others are in a position to support the work we're doing, we ask that you continue to support us. Although we have all this wonderful loan capital, we still need funds in order to continue operating. As I like to say, the loans don't just walk out the door on their own. There is a little bit of process and a little bit of vetting that has kept us so successfully here, surviving to this point. So with that, I really want to thank you all for attending. And I hope that you'll stick around just to check it out and see how it is to do a little bit of networking with others in our community. We'll be in littler groups of people and have a chance to visit. So thanks again. And Jamie, you can go ahead and work your magic and make us appear into smaller groups.